Yes, so I was born in Belfast, but grew up in County Donegal, just outside of Lifford, near the border between Lifford and Strabane. And I grew up in a historic house. It's actually a house called Cavanagh House, which means Hill of the Herons in Gaelic. Art wasn't really the first thing I thought about, even though I was kind of surrounded by it so much. But I first wanted to study archaeology, and then after that decided I was interested in studying architecture, and I decided to do a portfolio for the art colleges in Dublin anyway. So I got into DIT and UCD to study architecture, but also into DIT and NCAD to study art, and decided to do the NCAD first year, which is called core year, as a type of gap year and deferred entry for architecture. So I just loved it so much, I didn't look back after that 1 year of study in NCAD, and continued on to do the joint honours after that. Then I went on to study in Belfast and did a 2-year master's there, and finished in 1998. And after that, I did what's called a research fellowship in Cheltenham in England in painting. So that's around that time I began teaching. After Cheltenham, I got a Fulbright scholarship and came to the US and studied at Parsons School of Design in New York, and also did a road trip across America, where I visited 14 states in about 7 weeks. Traveling by Greyhound bus, and that was sponsored by Kodak, but also by the Tony O'Malley Award for Painters. So that was the last time I visited San Francisco back in 1999 with my wife for the road trip. But I've had many exhibitions here since that time, showing at 101 California, and also at Gregory Lind Gallery, which used to be on Geary Street. So I had 3 solo exhibitions there. And then also shown in Los Angeles and at Sealine Gallery, now at Edward Gallery, but also at a public gallery at Otis College of Art and Design called the Ben Maltz Gallery, and that was back in 2011. We decided to do a collaboration with Berkeley on artificial intelligence, the challenges and opportunities of artificial intelligence in contemporary society. We have curated this exhibition along with Jill Miller, who is a professor at UC Berkeley. And the exhibition is kind of a survey show of artists and writers who have used computers and programming, machine learning in their work historically, but also more contemporary iterations of artists working with AI. So I guess the youngest artists in the show are 2 BA students, one who is going to graduate next spring, Mario, and then Hugo, who was one of our exchange students visiting from southern Sweden. So there's a whole cross-section of artists who are either very old or have passed away, and then others in this historical section, and then others that are very young artists. And there's a whole range of different ways that AI has been used. So there's digital prints and interactive video installations, also other film and installations, from mixture between print and matter and digital and audio. And then there's a whole book section in the exhibition as well. Seeing as we're talking now in San Francisco, another work that I did in the last couple of years was a huge series of works for the Facebook offices, the Meta headquarters in Dublin. And that installation that I did there, it was I had a sort of a residency for for a week there, which was sort of preceded by a lot of research time and work in the studio. And I painted 5 different trees, including the trees from different trees in Ireland, but also trees that I've been drawing in Scandinavia. And they were painted directly onto the wall. And then the other installation there is a huge wall sculpture made of wooden blocks, which kind of both looks abstract and figurative at the same time. It could look like a computer motherboard or a cityscape or a large spaceship or something like that. My wife is Danish, and we had been sort of living a long distance relationship for 4 years at that point. We'd met at working in the same restaurant on Dame Street in Dublin when I was an art student there, and we decided that we would both try for Fulbrights in each of our respective countries, and if one got the Fulbright, then the other would follow and try and get a green card and work. But we were both very lucky to get Fulbrights, and I studied at Parsons, and Anya studied at NYU, and she was studying performance studies theory because she had done a previous bachelor's in dance history and English literature. And the Fulbright was really important for me, a hugely formative part of my education, but also the experience of doing the Fulbright in New York and living in New York for that year was very important for me. It was very challenging financially because even though I got the Brian Burns Fulbright to study at Parsons, it only covered part of the fees for 1 year. So I ended up after the first year getting a job teaching in Limerick, at Limerick School of Art and Design. And because I'd had a previous master's, my head of department at Parsons, he decided to allow me to transfer credits and complete the study, kind of using me as a guinea pig for long distance learning. So I completed my thesis and then traveled back to New York for the final MFA degree show. But I think the Fulbright and also the Tony O'Malley Award for Painters and the sponsorship from Kodak for that trip across America really started, my art career. I would say it's got me to where I am at the moment in terms of a lot of the different exhibition opportunities that then subsequently happened in the US. And interestingly, the project I did for the Tony O'Malley Award for Painters was inspired by the writer Franz Kafka, because he wrote a book called America, which was all written from secondary source material. So what I did was, in the lead up to traveling to the US and doing the Greyhound trip, which was actually in a way a reenactment of my father's Greyhound trip in 1969, I actually read the book Kafka's America Again, and it was my dad's copy that I read, and then I wrote a fake diary before I traveled, because Kafka never visited America, but I was going to be visiting America, so I wrote this travel diary based on Rough Guide to the US and Let's Go America, different travel brochures. And then while we were traveling, myself and my wife, and I was taking photographs and making sketches around America, I wrote what was the real diary, and that then became an audio piece, 2 audio pieces in several installations. It was shown in Kilkenny at the Butler Gallery at Kilkenny Castle, and then also in Derry at what was then called the Orchard Gallery in Derry, in several exhibitions. There was a kind of a play on fact and fiction, and then I made about 365 little paintings, kind of postcard paintings of the real part of the trip and the imagined part of the trip beforehand. People like Edward Hopper, of course, David Hockney has been a big influence, Gerhard Richter, but also in terms of my interest in architecture, Eileen Gray has been a huge influence in my work, and I really look forward to visiting E1027, hopefully within the next couple of years. Then the Brazilian architect Lino Bobardi, I just bought a book again of hers in Los Angeles, and I've been making works based on her architecture and ideas around architecture. Frank Lloyd Wright has been a big influence in different ways. I've read a lot of books about him. And in terms of installation, I think people like installation, and maybe actually writing. People like Louise Bourgeois has been a big influence. Also in terms of her writing, the way she writes about her more sort of personal background and her autobiography. It's a very eclectic mix of inspiration, so it's quite hard to pin down. I could go on for hours and hours and hours. Yeah. It's actually very much to the core of my philosophy around teaching, because I think the way I've always approached teaching has been from the perspective of empathy, and I'm just a very curious person and really interested in about how other people see the world and how other people interact with the world. So I've never really aligned myself with an idea that, you know, there's an old sort of German tradition of professor schools where, you know, the students are meant to kind of emulate their professors and kind of be mentored in that way. I see that every individual artist is the expert on their own work. One of my colleagues, Brandon LaBelle, he's actually from the US. He talks of the sovereignty of the artist, and that every artist kind of is queen or king of their own little kingdom in a way. And I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it. So although being professor of visual art and mainly responsible for the painting and drawing subject area in Bergen, I end up having quite a lot of painting students, which I really, really like. I also work with students working with performance, and I do very little performance myself, but other students working with computer programming and with sculpture installation, photography, and I'm just very curious to hear about what they're interested in, what they're doing. So Mario and Hugo, who are in the AI exhibition, Mario's a very talented photographer and also very good technically with photography, both digital but also working in the darkroom of analog photography and developing color and black and white film. So I find the conversations with him very inspiring, and hopefully I've been able to help him along the way with his own practice. Edward Cella Gallery, who represents me in the US at the moment, you can contact Edward in Los Angeles, and he also has copies of my publications, and he if they run out, he can also get access to the publications from Europe, and he's got a great range of my artworks in his on display at the moment, but also we'll have them in storage after the exhibition is over. Yeah, I think another way to experience the work is through my website, because I have a lot of my animation and video work up there on Vimeo, but accessible through the website. So you know, people can kind of have a look there, and then if they want to see actual paintings in person,